So what happens when two people of the same personality type meet? Type twins, you might say. I've been asked this a lot over the years, specifically from some of the quote-unquote rarer types about, whoa, what would it be like if I met another INFJ? Would it be this amazing thing? Would they just understand me like no one else has understood me? Well, that's entirely possible, but there are some other things that could happen that you might want to be aware of. Now, this video is sponsored by me. No, there's no corporate interest in here, okay? And if you're looking for some other content to consume, please go over to my second channel where I have a podcast. But I've just been interviewing some of my YouTuber friends, Scott Kramer, JJ McCullough, Greg Guevara, Man Carrying Thing. We talk about creativity, we talk about the behind the scenes of their YouTube channels. Take a listen. I think you'll enjoy it. So when type twins meet, when I say type twins, I'm just saying two people, two individuals who happen to have the same Myers-Briggs type, one of the same 16 personalities. Now, one of the great things here is that you both have the same exact cognitive functions in the same exact order. And basically what that means is that you process information and you make decisions in the same way. And what this is going to do is create an instant ease of communication. You're going to find it very easy to understand each other. In a broad sense, you'll understand where the other person is coming from. More specifically, you both will understand each other's decision-making process pretty well. This doesn't mean you're going to necessarily agree with or understand the decisions themselves that the person makes, but you'll be like, okay, well, I can see why you came to that decision that way. Another thing is that these type twins have the same weaknesses, so they're going to be able to bond over those shared concerns and worries. Maybe even some of the foibles they have, you might say. You know, like two INTPs who can bond over the fact that, man, people are weird, I hate socializing, they're stupid, and I'm a little bit freaked out by all of them. It's like if two ISTPs, for example, met in life as opposed to in not life, they would bond pretty quickly over their shared practicality, their realism, and their focus on the present moment, even if the two of them were very different as individuals. Now, when you meet one of your many type twins out there, it's not just you meeting yourself in a different body. I think that's one of the things that a lot of us hope for when we're learning about personality types. It's like, oh yes, now that I know my personality type, if I can just find someone who has the same personality type, it's gonna be like I'm looking in a mirror. It's like me, they're saying the words that I would say. It's, oh, this is magical. But no, it doesn't work that way. You're still individuals. Imagine it like this, if you will, that your personality type is like the operating system on a computer. So you and your type twin are like computers that both have Mac OS on them. I'm an Apple guy, sorry. But you as individuals have different backgrounds and different experiences throughout life, and those are like the programs that are installed on the computer. So for example, you could have one MacBook that has Final Draft on it. Final Draft is script writing software. But then you have another MacBook that has Premiere Pro, which is video editing software installed on it. They're running different programs, but it's the same operating system. And people of the same exact type can easily have different values, different beliefs, and different opinions, and those things are shaped by their background and their experiences. I mean, in many ways, you're gonna have a lot more in common with someone who grew up in the same neighborhood as you and has lived in the same place and had the same experiences as you, who is a different type than you, than someone who is your type twin who grew up in a totally different environment. And because of those potential differences in values and opinions, that can cause clashes, especially between specific personality types. For example, let's say two INFPs meet. If they have different values, it's not going to work. They might even hate each other. So let's say one of these INFPs really values veganism as a lifestyle, but the other INFP really values hunting, really values eating beef jerky. Not gonna get along. This is what trips up a lot of people, is that they will see some of these specific programs, if you will, in certain types. They'll see, oh, I've met a lot of INFPs that are vegan or whatever, and then they'll start to associate that with the type, and they'll say something like, someone who hunts could never be an INFP. But that's not true. That's something a lot of people fall into, especially when they're talking about their own type, because they just think about their own values, their opinions, and they're in this mindset of all of my type twins out there are going to think exactly the way I do, and they're going to value the same things and make the exact same decisions that I would. But that's not how it works at all. You could easily meet people who are your type twin out there who really upset you because they're just like the opposite in terms of those programs that they've downloaded, in terms of what they value, in terms of their opinions. But on the other hand, those differences might be okay with certain types. For example, you could have two ENTPs who have very different opinions, and just because of the nature of ENTPs liking to discuss and argue things, it might be fine. Here's another thing that I find very fascinating. Imagine that you were to meet a type twin who is basically like you in another body, and they even have like all the same programs downloaded. They have the same values and beliefs, etc. You might not even recognize yourself. I know we all think we would, but if we're honest, I don't know. I don't know that many of us actually would. The first thing is called the actor-observer asymmetry. Basically what that means, if you have two people, one is the actor who was doing something and the other is the observer who's watching. The observer is going to be like, you behaved that way. The actor behaved that way because that was like an intrinsic part of their personality. But the actor is going to say, no, I did that just because of the circumstances. I mean, that alone is going to throw off a lot of people when it comes to recognizing themselves in someone else. Similarly, there's something called a positivity bias. And that's where if you do something that has a positive outcome, you're like, well, it's great that my personality is that way. But if you do something that has a negative outcome, you're like, well, dang, those circumstances that I was in really caused that problem to happen. And then there's that old chestnut of psychology called projection, where we take whatever weaknesses or problems we have and just project them onto other people and say, hey, that's the problem you're dealing with. Like if I am a mean person, I might not recognize myself to be a mean person, but I'll think everyone around me is a mean person. When you recognize those personality type weaknesses in someone else and you project them onto them, if that is your type twin, that projection just so happens to be correct. And then of course, because of this, it can cause, disgust or even like fear to see this other person who you're projecting your weaknesses onto, and it's actually true that they are struggling with those things. As an example, you get two ENFJs together, and a big weakness for ENFJs is kind of just like sacrificing what they really want to make sure that other people get what they want. So you get two ENFJs who meet each other. They might not recognize in themselves that they have this kind of martyr syndrome and that they're like burning themselves out for everyone else for no good reason, but they'll see it in each other. And they will really dislike that. And one ENFJ will look at the other ENFJ and say, man, look at that sap. We got to bring back that word sap. I feel like people don't say it enough. He's just running around. He doesn't stand up for himself. He doesn't do what he wants. He's miserable. But meanwhile, that ENFJ who's saying all that, he's doing the same thing. Here's another thing. I got something else to say. When you get type twins together, they're doubling up on their weaknesses, which, as I mentioned before, that can be a source of bonding, but it can also be a way for them to like drag each other down. Like a very practical example would be if you get two ENFPs who happen to get matched together for a group project at school, they might end up failing because neither of them bothered to plan. They just both show up and be like, is our report today? I didn't really think about it. What are we doing? Oh, you don't have a plan either? Okay. You could get two INTJs who end up, just talking each other into a bad financial investment because neither of them really bothered to do the research. They were both just like feeding into, oh man, yeah, I can see down the road. This is such a great idea. This is totally going to work. You can get two INFPs together who just bring each other down into a pit of, oh man, everyone else is crap. I hate everyone. So meeting one of your type twins out in the wild, I wouldn't recommend it.
They say strangers come to town. They call